Warning: the information given during this podcast is from professionals discussing situations from our experience and sharing knowledge.
We are not treating or diagnosing what you are personally experiencing, and if you are having difficulties, please seek professional help.
Hello and welcome to
It's Not You.
It's Them.
This series is about getting started
All you need to know about finding, working,
and finishing up with a therapist.
and we are back. I'm
Yeah.
Rich,
I'm Lauren.
and this week's episode is One Size Does Not Fit All.
No.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So, we're going to talk about like how sessions are structured, that sort of thing, what's involved, all the other bits. It isn't a case of one size fits all, and how it's delivered is very, very specific and different to other people, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Because it's like... Oh, I've forgotten the line. Say the line again.
Like,
what did you just say before?
It's delivery. Like, how are you going to receive the level of treatment? Like, when and where should you get a treatment plan? Why should you get a treatment plan? Like, yeah.
I'm at the clip and I did it out. Okay, so so yeah, how it's delivered. So I think it's about, you know, when and where you tell your therapist what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to. If you've been to someone before and they're trying something with you that you know for a fact doesn't work, you don't have to wait it out. Like, you can say, I've done this before, it doesn't work for me, this is why it doesn't work for me, so I don't feel it necessary to do it again. Right,
so that could be anything from, like, in Gestalt they've got, like, 2 chair work, or, like, writing things down and journaling it, or is it, like, I'm not a very creative person, so I don't like being that imaginative about things, I don't like movement, so because of my pain levels, I don't want to do dance therapy. It's like, you're entitled to go, no, that doesn't work for me, because a good therapist would have a range of stuff in their toolbox to pick out and say, well, okay, that doesn't work, so let's try something else. They may ask you what about it didn't work. So there could be like, it might be the way the person explained it, it might have been that you didn't feel comfortable with them, is there a modification that could be used to make it feel different, or it just didn't work, because understanding why it didn't work can also help the therapist decide what other things might be better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, the response shouldn't have been, well, I don't know why it hasn't worked before. You are not the problem, right? Like,
no.
If it's the modality, or if it's, you're just not getting it, it might be presented in a different way, that is okay. Like, it's not up for discussion about whether you did or did not get it, and we're going to try it again because maybe that therapist didn't present it right. It's obviously become a block, which means you should just step round it and carry on figuring out how else to present the information. Treatment plans are typically given in America because it's usually insurance-based. Insurance companies want to know, why are they still coming? Why do they need therapy? What specific mental health issues are we treating? And why are we treating them? Otherwise, we're not paying for it. And thankfully, I'm not in a position that has to bill at the moment, so I don't have to bill insurance companies and give up my therapeutic reasons as to why this person is in therapy. They just are.
I mean, that used to be the same thing. Like in the UK, when we work in charities, like especially during our placement time, you had to justify, like, if you're going to have 6 more sessions with this client, you had to justify why you thought that person needed 6 more sessions, or, you know, I think it's some of the other ones, you know, because if this charity is around one specific topic or focus, if the therapy is now sphered into something else, they then will question whether that person can continue the therapy with them.
Yes.
Access their service, which I can understand to a certain point. Like, obviously you're a service and that's what you're primarily there for, and you've got a waiting list of people to come on and come off. But I think as a therapist, it can be a bit of a struggle because someone's built that relationship, they're expressing what they're doing, they want to work on it, and they want to like continue to like they're done.
Yeah, and I think I remember that from my my first charity I worked with, as long as I sort of said, no, I think they need like 6 more. But yeah, you had an extensive wait list that you were going to have to justify them holding that place for while somebody else had to wait. So, and it is frustrating because it's kind of like, well, if they're not done, they're not done. But like,
right.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I think being clear about the goals you want to work on, the specific areas that are a problem for you, will help streamline some of that process. You should know what you're working on, right? There are things, particularly, I mean, I'm integrative now, but like in my solidly person-centered days, you didn't dictate anything. Like if the client wanted to talk about the weather one day for an hour, you would allow them the space to do that, because it's not really about the weather, it's about them finding the ability to be comfortable with you. Now, if that went on for 6 sessions, you might bring it up, right? Like, just curious as to why you keep, blah, blah, blah. But when you're going in, and if you feel lost each week, you need to have some clarity about why you're going back and spending this money and time, and you need to know what you're working on. Let's talk a little bit about suicide safety plans. Like, when would they come into our sessions?
I can talk, like, I did have one client who that was applied for. It came in, it was identified very early on in their intake sheet through their assessments that, like, this is a thing that they were struggling with, and it was a recurring theme. So for me, I equated it with when you need to act on a crisis, we'll call it a crisis safety plan. When you want to act on that, if your person's in crisis, there could be an additional anxiety about, I'm in crisis now, I don't know, and now I've also got to worry about what's happening because I don't know what the impact of what me saying something will have and what they're going to do and what that's going to mean. And like, you've got this whole other realm of unknown being thrown into a situation where you're already struggling to keep your head above water. My theory was to say, right, this is our agreement, this is the person, this is what, if you came in and say this and explain very clearly what this is, in terms of like, you've got means, you want to kill yourself, this is, it's a very credible threat. Like, this is a people, like, I had a list of their workers or the nearest person in their family links and their phone numbers and what we're going to do, and had a strict policy in place of like, if it's to do with this, we're going to have a sit and we'll make the call together in the session. It was very clear, like, it would be collaborative, and it was broken down. So that person knew if they ever had to come in and say this is how they're feeling, they knew how I was going to respond, because we'd already agreed that. We agreed who it was going to be, I was going to be talking to, how I was going to talk to them, and what sort of support they could receive as a result of it, and why we were doing it. And because they were able to agree with all of that in a calm, in non-crisis mode, it made the whole thing a bit easier. And we did quite a few sessions together, and we only ever had to enact it once. And I have to say, I felt more reassured knowing that that's what we had in place, and I was doing the best thing for the person, and I also wasn't second guessing what I was meant to be doing in that situation. And I was quite early doors into my training as well, so I think even then I feel like there was a really good structure, and that young person really benefited from that. And they had a successful outcome at the end of it, and it was just, it's important.
And those plans are our primary basis as therapists is do no harm, but also if there is immediate risk to harm of self or others, then we are what's called mandated reporters. We do have to report to appropriate authorities, whether that be the GP, whether that be police, crisis line, person of safety, because we want to make sure that you are safe and that you are not going to do something very permanent. And I think having one of those plans in place is a safety or crisis plan. It is not something that we would ever use as a stick to beat you with. It is not something that we would ever refer back to in terms of, well, are we getting to the point where we need to, it's not something that should be brought up lightly. Not everyone needs one.
No.
Some high risk mental health facilities will have them as standard. So if you have had previous treatment in a facility like that, they come as standard, unfortunately. But if they are a trigger for you, or there are something that you need to bring them up. And the reason that we do bring them up again is that, like I said, we are mandated. If we don't report something and something happens, we can lose our licenses, we can lose the ability to practice, and lose your life, like, importantly, and all of that. So the reason we're talking about them is because if it is brought up, or it is something that is a base standard of the facility or the therapist you're being treated by, it's not personal. They are unfortunately becoming the standard in mental health.
Yeah, but I would definitely, unless a client had put to me in part of their admission sheet or during our initial intake conversations, I wouldn't be bringing up a safety plan in terms of that thing, because it can also be kind of like, if it's your first time into therapy, it can be like a huge, like, is this where it could lead me? And it's not that at all. It's just because some people are in a situation where they are in a huge amount of distress. I mean, this is not because of I want to not use the word, like, they've not avoided it or whatever. They've not been in a place where they're able to sit down and unpack what they've needed to unpack, and they're in quite a lot of distress. And I think that tool is for that situation. It's not because you go into therapy and you could end up being suicidal. I don't believe that's what it is.
No.
And
if you already have had issues with that, if you've that's unfortunately already become a coping skill or a mechanism that your brain believes is the right way out, then it's an area that needs to be considered carefully and with as much tact and support as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's important. I think we touched on this earlier about goals and the difference between, like, certain modalities have goals as a focus. Like that's like you were talking about, like, some other ones as well had that's the focus, and it's almost like, oh right, I've got to have that to aim for, or that's the. Explain a bit more about that.
So, short-term versus long-term, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So short-term therapy, again, some of it is insurance-driven, some of it can be problem-focused. So like we mentioned in the previous one, if you have anxiety about a presentation that's coming up and you are currently having issues not sleeping, you're becoming unraveled by it, like it's a really big deal, and there really is nothing else going on, though that would be a short-term goal that you could quite easily resolve in therapy with one of the cognitive modalities such as CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, ACT, anything that comes with a short-term solution-focused ending. I only want to come and talk about this one problem because every other area I'm a functioning, healthy adult.
I'm fine, and
right, and I have appropriate coping skills that I can use. That could be minimum. Well, it could be one session, that could be 6, but I can't see that being any more than 6 to 8 if you're just coming to talk about one thing. Long-term therapy is for issues that you're aware are heavy, they are well embedded into your being, they are affecting every area of your life, they have become relational, like they're having major impacts on the 5 areas of your life, and that is something that you need to do yourself the honor of, like, long-term process, where you might go in thinking, oh well, it's just this one thing, and realize actually it's considerably more, and you need to think whether you're ready to invest in that. Now, long-term therapy, you're looking at person-centered, gestalt, all of the experiential processes that allow you to sort of just kind of meander through it, like, okay, well, is this it? No, or maybe it's it. What if we talked about this for a bit, or that thing happened? I wonder if that's what's stopping me. Because the solution-focused ones are going to be more on the cognitive, the kind of what I call neck up, right? Like, thoughts cause feelings. Feelings generate the thoughts. The thoughts are blah blah blah. So rephrase the thoughts, and they won't generate those bad feelings, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. Right. The behaviorists like to think that if it's that simple, right? Come for me if you wish, behaviorists. It's fine. My supervisor is a behaviorist, and she jibs me all the time about it, that all behavior is purposeful. It is. But there's something else beneath it. But the long-term therapies are more surrounded. Where are these messages coming from? Your upbringing, like the way that you process information. It might have been a divorce. It might have been childhood trauma. It might have been anything.
Yeah.
But you can't do that from a solution-focused, in my experience. You can't do that from a solution-focused.
Right.
Because it doesn't offer you the space or time to be able to delve into what's going on.
Yeah, and what it's connected to and how it's...
Right, and some people can move through those processes 6, 8, 12 weeks. Some people can do it much quicker. But again, as we've talked about, allowing yourself time, space, support, commitment to it. Like, if you're not ready to... Well, I didn't want to delve into what happened in 1975. Okay, that's okay. And you can step out of therapy and you can pause. You know, you can press the pause. You're the one that's got the remote control. You can press pause if you want and leave it for 6 months and come back, or come back 5 years later. Like, long-term therapy. But on the flip side of that, you shouldn't be in long-term therapy 8, 9, 10 weeks if you're recycling the same problem.
Correct. It's like it's got to be moving forward. There's got to be something.
There needs to be a purpose to it.
Yeah.
Because then I would question, okay, if you keep coming back for this one thing, we've talked it to death, right? We've come up with the options. We've come up with the solutions. What is not apparent? What is not sticking? What is not making sense? Or is it you're coming to me because I'm the only person that listens to you? Okay, that's perfectly fine, but as long as you and I both know that,
right?
Like, and that there's going to have to be an end to it at some point, because if we're not actively working on something, or we're not actively engaging in problem solving, then I don't want to take your time and money to do that when there's other services or community services that we can help connect you with.
And I've never understood who plucked out the air. It's 6 sessions. I never understood where that magic number came from. I don't understand where it's come from, because
some board of directors somewhere, I'm guessing, that are not like clinicians that felt like it wasn't a reasonable amount of time for people to get their shit together.
I'm pretty sure it's connected with the power of 3. It's something to do with the numbers of 3. Like, you know, that it's a big symbolic. I'm pretty sure it's something like that, because it just. I have had a client like experience change within 3 sessions. I have like, and they came in with the problem they had, and then they left because it was resolved for them. That's fine. I'm happy with that. I've had some clients with like 18 plus sessions, you know, like, and that's fine, because that's what they needed for the time. And it's like, I don't feel like we're here to support you, and especially in the modern world. I can't stress this enough, because, you know, it's a fast-paced modern world. The way that people spend time together has changed a lot. We haven't got the same amount of availability and structure as what we once had, because everything's become instantaneous, everything's become now, it's become quick, and I don't think people have got the commitment to, I'm going to have 6 sessions in a row doing this one thing with this one person, and 6 weeks is a long time in the modern world to commit to.
6 weeks of an hour, and it's not just the time there. Like I said, it's the time before, time after, scheduling. If you've got kids, good luck finding 3-hour slot where you have time. Like, and time spent is now virtual, right? Like, we've seen online therapy since COVID explode across the internet. And telehealth has had to become a new way of doing things, and connection gets lost, right? Like, connection, allowing yourself time for connection, allowing yourself to commit to that connected experience. Like, it comes with a price tag, and it comes with a allotted time. But whoever came up with the 6-week thing clearly has not been in therapy themselves before. I think I can imagine that conversation being like, well, is 3 weeks long enough? No, like, you know, people are getting settled, blah, blah, blah. Well, what about 9 weeks? Oh, no, that's too long. Like, they'll just be taking up time. All right, then 6 weeks it is. They should have their lives together by then.
But I imagine, like, but it has, the way people process has changed a lot. And that's why I think it's important to, like, that when they haven't amended the 6-session rule for decades. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's never been amended. And you can't tell me the life that we had then is similar to the life we have now. That's why I'm very much like, part of my practice, I do home visits or I do online. So I either visit people's homes or like do it online. And I think either way works for me and the connection is there. But it's also that it's about convenience now. It's about being able to have them moments to allow yourself to decompress, because we are become 24/7. Because before, like a couple of decades, a decade or two ago, when you came home from work, a lot of things were closed. You wouldn't be able to be contacted. Everything was like shut down. But now, you were able to be accessed and contacted around the clock. So it's almost like, when do people have that? You know, they have to
free time.
That they really have to dig to put that time together. So that's why I don't feel very pressured. Like, you have to be consecutive. I feel just like you have to make the time and think, right, this week, this is what I want to do, and I've got access to it. But that's my personal way. Yeah,
no, I think because even some charities also combine us to 6 consecutive weeks. Like, some people, that's not enough time. Like, that's why I talked about bi-weekly or bi-monthly, or like in some residential mental health facilities, you could be in there every day. Like, and then when you get released to the community, what do you mean I can only see my person once a month? Right. How am I supposed to function?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
why I think that's why you need to be mindful about what are you going to therapy for, what service are you using, what do they provide, and can you reasonably function within those parameters?
Yes, I think it's so important. And you know, like, angiotherapy doesn't have to be that, as you said at the beginning, it's not one size fits all. It can be tailored and adjusted and amended, and there are so many therapists out there who can do that and to allow it to become what you need it to be. And it's so like, get rid of this idea that it's a stuffy sort of stuffy.
You're not gonna, it's not like a bus stop. You're not gonna come in and you're not gonna say, well, this is what I need, and I need to stop having these negative thoughts, or I need to stop thinking about my ex. We're going to wave some magical wand, and 6 weeks later, you're going to walk out healed.
Yeah.
This is not Cinderella. Yeah. There's no bibbity-bobbity boot going on. Like,
no.
Sadly. But what they say, trust the process, the beauty in the process, all of that, whale music, amethyst wearing, jewelry slinging, part of it is right. Trust, like, allow yourself time for the process.
That phrase haunted me throughout my entire training.
I know it did.
Trust the process is probably one of the most infuriating things ever, because I was like, very much like, so I've just got to blindly be vulnerable, put myself out there, and it's going to be fine, is it? I was very
resistant.
Yes. But I also, there's a lot of control there that I wasn't willing to.
Never.
Are you clutching your pearls?
Yes, darling. Pearls are clutched.
I was, very, very resistant to this control thing. But it was true. It was very much, I remember somebody from years ago had said to me when they were doing their stuff, they said, if you resist it, you will not make it. And as scary as it is, if you just give yourself over, you'll reap the rewards. And it always stuck with me. And as much as I hate it, and I wanted that phrase to be wrong so much. It's like, if I could kick it, I would want to. And it was so true, because like, whatever was spinning, and it did feel like a lot of things were spinning at the time. And but the end result was, it did put me into a different mindset. It made me see something a bit more clearer, or now I understand why I do that for. I understand what this bit is. And I used to think, that really upsets me, so if I go to therapy, that'll get rid of this feeling, and it doesn't. What it does is make me realise this will make me react like that, and because I'm aware of it, and I know what's happening, when I get triggered by it, it won't last as long, and it won't last as deep. It will be, it'll be shorter bursts, and I'll get back to my life and be how I want to be in control again, which is weird. Like, trust the process, and I end up getting exactly what I want, to be more in control of what's going on. But it's weird. That's what I mean. Like, that's what it helps you do. It helps you get that place where you can have these moments that takes you outside yourself, and then you can get back in the saddle really quickly. And I think I can't stress that enough, because when life kicks you off the saddle, there's this orientation of what's going on, why is it happening. It adds to how long it takes you to get back on the saddle and back onto the journey that you're meant to be on.
And I think, I mean, so over the last 2 episodes, I don't like wearing amethyst jewelry or well music, and so they realise that we're both stubborn, and that we both have people that want to get to it, and we both ended up being therapists, which I find the irony is hilarious.
Although I do appreciate a bit of incense. I do appreciate a little bit of crystals going on. But I would never wear said crystals. And I also wouldn't be wearing any sort of scarfage.
Not around me. No.
I don't.
Because I would strangle you, but I'm just kidding. But it's... I think if we are able to, in our, like... Just because we're therapists doesn't mean we have it together. Right? Like, that's what we have supervisors for. And that's what we do peer supervision for. And that's why we have people and places that we can go to consistently do that. And that's what initially therapy is having that space to be whatever it is you need to be in the moment, whether it's stubborn, frustrated, resentful, like you want to have your mean girl moment and you haven't been able to do it anywhere, like you want to be vulnerable and fearful, any of those things, and still walk out the door knowing that it was okay. Like, I can imagine being sat across me, like, it wasn't consistently 10 years, but it was about 10 years while I was in and out. I was in America a few times during those years. But to just to have me as a client at that time, that woman deserves a medal, if there ever is one. Like, she is the primary reason why I became a therapist. Because being able to offer something, it was life-changing, that space. And if I'm ever able to offer just one person what she gave me, then I will have fulfilled my duty, I guess. But the reason why we tell you all of this stuff is because we've also been clients at the other end that would have loved to have known, what does this mean? Or why is this process so hard? Like, why, what do you mean I could only have this time or this time, and I'm going to get away from work, and how am I going to do this, and like I can't get to it this week because I've got another appointment, and what does that mean about me? All of these other things, like, and we hope that the information we're giving you helps you.
Yeah, it just takes away that little bit of unknown, so you can get one step closer to actually picking up the phone and making that booking or clicking online and doing that little induction thing. And you're a bit more well-versed of like, oh, if they're a good one, I'll expect this. And if they're not so much, then I know maybe not to go with them. And I won't be just bullshitted.
And I won't internalise that it must be me.
Yeah, no.
No, probably them.
It is 100% them. It's exactly the name of the podcast. It's not you.
So would you like to share some comments we've had?
In our next session, should we do that in our next session? Because I haven't got anything.
Yeah, we've had some comments come in, and we love hearing from you, whether it's good, bad, ugly, in between, because then we're not losing our minds talking to ourselves.
Well, it makes it a bit nicer. No, you guys are getting something, and please, we will answer any questions that you send our way. So it's not you. .podcast1@gmail.com. Please ping it through, or you can send us a message via Instagram, same sort as Dubar, and get in touch, get in part of the show, and tell us what you want us to talk about next, because we've got one more episode left of this series about getting help, and then we will have a little break, and then we'll come back with a brand new series and different topics to discuss after that.
Woo.
So, any suggestions, any things that you want us to focus on, let us know. Until then, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.